So last time we discussed really the more literal meaning of Shabbat, that it's basically got 4 dimensions. Not to do any work, meaning not to change or manipulate the world, and then to be allow that to create the space where we can really remember what's important to us. We, in terms of the Pesukim, in terms of the verses, it talks about remembering creation. Obviously, that's a major theme for Shabbat. It talks about remembering the exodus of Egypt, that we are free. It's a celebration of our freedom. And I wanted today going to go into more of, as a core value, what we understand as the underlying principles and what we should be focused on. They're very similar actually when it comes to Shabbat. So let's see over here. Shabbat is a day of total rejuvenation on all levels of our being: physical, emotional, social, and mental and spiritual. In terms of physical, it's there's a beautiful verse in Isaiah, and the verse says like this: "Call the Sabbath delight, ukarasa the Shabbos oineg." Out of oineg Shabbos, that's where that comes from. This word here, oineg. Likdosh Hashem, the day, the Lord's holy day, mechubad, honored. And you should honor it by not attending to your affairs and speaking idle words. So that's a calling, and it's really the mitzvah of Oineg Shabbos, of delighting in Shabbos, which is known as the rabbinic part of Shabbat. Let's look over here, source number 2. The Gemara, the Talmud in Shabbos 113a, speaks out how to do that. So every part of this verse, it kind of adds to. So let's see. And honor it. How do you, all right, v'kabdasa, honor it. Your clothes on Shabbat should not be like your clothes during the week. Ma'asois darchecha, from your regular ways, your walking on Shabbat should not be like you're walking during the week. People generally walk in a slower, less rushed way. You're not going anywhere. From attending to your affairs, it's prohibited to deal with your weekday affairs. A lot of business actually is not prohibited from the Torah point of view on Shabbat, but it's prohibited by the Rabbanan, right? Believe it or not, shul was not made for networking on business networking on Shabbos. It was made for, right, to get together to daven and to learn Torah. And the Dava is to speaking idle words. You're speaking on Shabbat should not be like you're speaking during the week. And from that we learn one shouldn't even speak about Malacha. So that's the Talmud. So how do different behaviors lead to different thoughts? Obviously, what's included in this Gemara is that, if you dress up for it, you'll feel better about it. You'll naturally honor it more. If you walk differently on Shabbat, that puts you into more readily into the right mindset. From attending to your ways, from dealing with your weekday affairs and speaking about business on Shabbos, also it will lead up enhancing your Shabbat experience. People often go to great excesses in honoring Shabbat through clothing and food. Where is the line between honoring Shabbat and glorifying yourself? Right? Is it always done for Shabbat? Honoring Shabbat, to delight in Shabbat, is based on as a verse in Isaiah above, Shabbat food is world renowned. What are some of your favorite Shabbat foods? What are some of the exotic Shabbat foods you've seen and tasted from around the world? Anyone like to contribute?
What about a cholent?
Yeah, cholent's one of them. Excellent. Yeah, and there are many different types of cholents actually from different communities. And the reason for cholent obviously is that one's not allowed to cook on Shabbos, and people wanted warm food on Shabbos morning, so they came up with a dish that could remain on the stove the entire overnight. Fine. Okay. Let's go on over here. Emotional and social. So this is a beautiful piece from Rav Shmuel David Lutzata, the Rashdal, and he says like this: all of them, and he's speaking about people. He says all of them should rest on one day. The idea of Shabbos is that everyone on one day has the same day of rest and be able to gather together to eat and drink and speak to one another, increase love between them. So a major theme of Shabbat is the camaraderie, family gatherings, increasing of love. They are also to go to the synagogue, to hear the Torah from the rabbis. It's a day when everyone is free from work, they're able to do that. And you shall call Shabbat a delight, sanctified and honored to the Lord. So it's the same verse in Isaiah, but he's really saying that the delight is in a more an emotional and social way. To gather together and to go to shul. There's an interesting book called this is the Harvard Medical School review, Living Better, Living Longer. Social connections not only give us pleasure, they also influence our long-term health in ways every bit as powerful as adequate sleep, good diet, and not smoking. Dozens of studies have shown that people who have satisfying relationships with family, friends, and other community are happier, have fewer health problems, and live longer. So that's definitely a benefit. That is a benefit that that's a benefit that one gets from Shabbat every week. So let's have a conversation. Shabbat is the opportunity to share a meal with family and friends and connect face to face without any electronics or time constraints of our busy weekdays. What is the qualitative difference of this type of communication? What are the contemporary challenges in having this kind of connection? And two, to what degree is social conformity necessary in order to experience Shabbat as a community? Any comments?
Well, there are not many of us to comment, so Kim, it's you and me.
Is it just the two of us?
No, Beryl's here too, and Ilana was.
Oh, there's Beryl. Yes, Beryl's back. Sorry, I didn't see Beryl.
I don't know where Ilana disappeared to. Oh,
Well,
she's having a
Shabbat
problem.
What's the question again? Sorry, I wasn't focused.
Focus, Kim.
Points.
I can't focus. I'm busy focusing on what you're doing that you're not focused.
Why, you can't see my screen?
No.
I can't see your face. I'm thinking about ordering you a web camera quickly.
You know, I ordered one and it's taking weeks. There's a backlog.
No, because I think you're reading something else while you're chatting to us.
No, don't you see my screen? I'm marking it up as we go. Huh?
Source
No.
2, correct? Yes.
Yes,
Social
thank you.
connection, not
Okay.
only given us.
So
pleasure.
here's the question: is what is the qualitative difference between the type of communication you have face to face on Shabbat than you have during the week over technology?
It's a very interesting question that you're asking during this time specifically.
Right.
No one's having face-to-face connections these days.
Well, you know, Shabbat is actually a rare time to have it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
Mm.
I think that what happens on Shabbat is like you cannot, you only speak to those that you really want to speak to.
Okay, right.
And you've got to like, it's a bit more tiring because like now, for example, you can be doing this Zoom thing, but like you could be like playing a game on your phone, or if someone's a bit bored, like you're not really interested in their opinion, you can be reading an article and that. But on Shabbos, when you're talking face to face with someone, you actually have to like focus on what they're saying and like engage. You've got to engage much more.
It's very interesting, you know. Actually, the word is a drasha that I have, but I think it's very true. The word for someone that dies is in Hebrew is often used as nifta, person's nifta.
Yeah.
And that comes from the word patur. And a patur means that you are not obligated anymore. You are, what's the word for that?
Exempt.
Exempt. And the Talmud uses that word for when two people are together and then they leave each other. It says, Nifta echad mechaver. One, he left his friend. And again, it uses this word about you're exempt. So I think the meaning behind it is that when you are face to face, it really obligates you. You're obligated to deal with a person, because a person, again, I think is because a person's in B'Tselem Elokim, it's the image of God, and it's very obliging, right? When a person is looking at you, speaking to you, you're obligated to them to pay attention. But what technology does is it takes away that sense of obligation. You only have to communicate the way is exactly what you said, as much as you're interested. There's nothing drawing you in. And I think there's a lack of, it really is a lack of connection.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about the intellectual rejuvenation of Shabbat. Kim, can you see my screen, intellectual?
Sorry, I'm going to go back there. Give me a sec. I just see a beautiful, okay, there we go.
Okay, intellectual, Shulchan Aruch. So the interesting thing, and workers who do not toil in the Torah during all the days of the week, because they're busy at work, should toil more in Torah on Shabbat than Torah scholars who toil in Torah all days of the week. So they have an obligation to learn Torah more on Shabbat than those that learn all week long. Because obviously it's a day free of
toil.
Distraction.
Yeah. Okay. 9.
That's why, Rabbi, that's why it's very, very important, okay, to have a really good lena.
Good lena?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
No, seriously. Like someone that doesn't like drone on and all of that, because it's got they've got to keep your attention. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Okay, let's look at the conversation here. The weekly Torah reading in synagogue is a fulfillment of this mitzvah. Shabbat is also a day when we often have opportunity to read in general. What subjects enhance your Shabbat experience?
Interesting question.
But can I ask you a quick question, Rabbi?
Yeah.
I joined this group where we're doing the Pasha of the week for a year, okay?
Okay.
And so we started today with this week's Pasha. Why Why do they count the ladies from 1 month old and not from bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah age? They count all the other tribes from the age of 20 because they can serve in the army. What can a 1 month old do? Like they can't. The ladies can't.
I understand the question. I don't recall an answer offhand. I'll have to look it up again. Yeah, it's a good question. Most other countings of this, in terms of a census, are from 20 years onwards.
No, but that's because they're going into the army. And okay, the ladies and the Kohanim don't go into the army, and that's because they're busy with the.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
No, which I understand all of that, but I'm saying, like, it should have been then, if for the census, it should have been from when you were a man or a woman. A 1 month old can't do anything.
Right. Okay, we'll have to look it up. I don't recall an answer offhand.
But it makes sense, because if you think about it, the Kohanim at the time of counting were 4. It was Aaron and his sons. 3 sons, 2 later passed away. They hadn't really have descendants yet, because all of Aaron's other descendants who were alive at the time were Leviim.
Yeah, but the tribe of Levi was much bigger.
Correct. And what I'm saying is, when you're trying to count, the Leviim were there to serve, whereas the Yisraeli were there to fight. So it does make sense to a degree.
But why from 1 month?
Yeah, that's Kim's question. Okay, let's come back to it. I want to go into the next part of this.
Okay, sure.
Okay, spiritual. So Rabbi Shimon, there's a Gemara in Beitza. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, the Holy One, blessed be He, gives a person an additional soul on Shabbat, called the Neshama Yesera, additional soul. And at the conclusion of Shabbat, removes it from him. As it stated, he ceased from work and he was refreshed. Ve'yi nafash. Uses the word nefesh. Excuse me. Joshua Heschel says, Judaism teaches us to be attached to holiness in time, to attach to sacred events, to learn how to consecrate sanctuaries that emerge from the magnificent stream excuse me, of the year. The Shabbat, the Sabbaths are great cathedrals, and our Holy of Holies is a shrine that neither the Romans nor the Germans were able to burn. So, questions. What do you think it means to have an extra soul? What has to be in place in your life to sanctify the Shabbat in a way that it's nourishing and rejuvenating? And how can you guard this time so that it can become part of your life? Meaning, for lack of a better term, Shabbos is meant to be a spiritual experience. So what is necessary in order to reach that state of being?
Can I ask you a question? If you're not from, do you still have that second soul? Because I mean, like someone who doesn't keep Shabbat at all, okay? Would they still get that second soul?
I don't know. The Gemara seems to say that God gives a person an extra soul on Shabbat.
Okay.
I don't know how in touch they are with that soul.
But I mean, how in touch are any of us like really with that soul?
Exactly.
How do you
relate to this idea?
Like, you've got the second soul with you on Shabbos and like.
No, Rashi actually says a fascinating. Rashi says it. one can eat more on Shabbat without being feeling full.
I was going to say the only touch where I am is because I eat more.
Right. But I think it allows people to feel more in touch, more easier to daven, to speak to God, in touch of a deeper sense of themselves. So let's look at a bit of integration here. What does this diber mean to you as a core value? You know, when you think of the 10 Commandments as core values, you're really meant to think, you know, this is one of my core values, Shabbat. It's quite interesting that even though there's, you know, as you say, people that keep Shabbat, people that don't keep Shabbat, but Shabbat as a concept and as part of Judaism is essential. Meaning there's no Jewish or religious movement that discards Shabbat. You know,
Oh, yes, there is.
we wouldn't be you know, more than the Jews have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jews. So it's, you know, it's an amazing institution, Shabbat. It's an amazing day that we've been gifted. So it's important to guard it. It's important to make sure that it's do whatever we can that it can be a meaningful experience. When do you feel your, let's say, greatest elevation on Shabbat?
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
I sometimes feel it just before Shabbat ends. You know, just before Shabbat ends, and like you start, like just before, like you like starting, like Shabbat's coming out, and you're gonna like start doing Havdalah and all of that. I find that's very, like, for me, Havdalah is like quite a
high moment.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I like, it separates me from like the mundane and that of the week, you know, and Shabbat kind of thing.
Actually, personally, I like Shabbat morning. I think the prayer service and you know, normally we've had a good sleep, a bit rested. That to me is the most, the highlight. I think everyone has some
young kids. You haven't got young kids in your house.
There you go, Greg. Different stages of life.
I haven't been still on a Shabbat morning for a long time.
What? No, have we? Don't worry.
Yeah, but I had a year before that.
Okay. Integration. What does this diber mean to you as a core value? When can it be applied? You know, you can think about it during the week. Shabbat's not just for Shabbat, right? One needs to prepare for it. What are the challenges you will face in really engaging with Shabbat, and how can you overcome them? I think for you know, many people, and it's true of many things in life, you know, it doesn't look from the outside, it looks like a lot of effort and maybe quite restrictive, but for the people that do keep it, I think they feel very very blessed to have it in their life.
Absolutely.
Okay, so every day, prepare for Shabbat, buy something or prepare some food or Dvar Torah for the Shabbat table. Take a Shabbat moment during your day. Stop what you're doing and realign yourself with what is important to you. Because at the end of the day, that's really what Shabbat is. It's a day of rejuvenation, of recalibration and realignment with who we are, our relationship to God, our relationship to history, our relationship to our loved ones, our family, our friends, our community. And it really allows one to stop and think about where we're going and what we are doing. So, good. All right, everyone. Thank you. And we look forward
Rabbi,
to
if I
seeing
may.
you
Thank you, Rabbi.
on Tuesday.
Rolf, if I
Happy
may,
Shabbat.
Rabbi, what's
like
going to
to-
happen next week?
What's the problem?
Well, Shavuot is on Thursday.
Yeah, we'll just have to do Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll
Rabbi?
break for Shavuot. Yeah.
if I may, I can see your mother's joined us. I'd like to wish you a hearty mazel tov for your grandson's wedding.
Mom, did you hear
Mazal
that? I don't know if she can hear us. Mom, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much indeed.
Mazal tov.
Absolute pleasure.
Mazel tov.
It was a great sadness to us that we weren't able to be there in person, but we really did enjoy the video of it, and we felt,